for my September retreat in Pentwater, Michigan. This would be a really great way to just get an introduction to the pressure-free method and actually have a really enjoyable time. If you've ever been to Pentwater, you know that. If you haven't, it's a delightful town. My husband grew up there. It's um, it's a place where you don't need to lock anything, and you can actually walk from the little village right to the beach, up to the dunes, to all the little shops, the little restaurants. So you don't need a car. I've picked people up at the ferry before, up in Ludington, and brought them to Pentwater, and you don't need a car to get around, which is really, really nice. So if you're interested, just DM me. I can give you all the information. And let's move into the topic today. So the topic is overwhelming expectations. One of the things that I coach in a later session in my work, first we've got to really get a handle on the stress response, but then we get to start to craft our life. And what I talk about is the fact that we can have expectations, and we'll go deeper about all the ways these expectations develop. But if they're here and this is where we are, so this is our expectation, but this is where we're sitting, and there's this big gap, we can trigger the stress response incessantly because we feel this gap. We feel this inability to close the gap. And so something has to give. And a lot of times it's our health. Our health will give because we feel so overwhelmed that we can't hit this or meet this expectation. Where do these expectations come from? I remember one of the clients I was coaching said, well, my parents are athletes. They're expecting me to be an athlete, and not just participate in a sport, but they expect me to excel in a sport, whatever it is. And that expectation was just so overwhelming to them, that it was causing them to dislike the sports they were checking out and participating in. This was a young person. And so it was like, now maybe the parents never even said to them, we expect you to play a sport. This was an internal expectation on the part of my client, an internal expectation, thinking that they expect me to do this. Um, so it's interesting. Is the expectation coming from the exterior to you? Is it a boss, a teacher, a coach, a parent, a sibling, or is it an internally developed expectation? And it can be a combination. In this case, it was a combination. It was because of who the parents were and what they did that this client felt this particular expectation. I also had this happen with someone whose both parents were in the military. And so there was an expectation, well, I guess I have to do that too. Sometimes we fall into an expectation because we haven't been exposed enough. My husband started out in the engineering school at Michigan. His father was an engineer. It was something that he knew. So one of the reasons I loved when my kids were growing up, I was a volunteer helping to put together career and college exploration for students in the school so that they could meet people in all kinds of professions and jobs so that they could explore, what's a possibility. Maybe you're going to go to trade school, become a welder, like one of my son's friends did. Maybe you're going to go this route, but if we're not exposed, you might not even know. So the expectation is, oh, I have to be a lawyer. I've been writing fiction, a big piece of fiction since 2016. One of my characters has that exact thing happen. His father is an attorney, has his own practice now. The brother is a part of it, and now he's expected to. But my fictional character has a stutter, and whenever he stands in front of people, he cannot speak hardly at all. And so then he moves to the business school and becomes an accountant. So that expectation, though, always made him feel like he was a failure. He's failing everything. He failed his marriage, he failed this, he failed that. So when these expectations aren't being met, whatever they are, we can really feel like we are failing. And so it behooves us to take it apart, to untangle it for a moment. So what is that expectation? Where did it come from? Is it internally driven, externally driven? Is it even true? Is it even what we want? And when you start to really assess that, I'll give a personal example. I loved all my classes in school growing up. I really did. But I did excel pretty much in all of them, but math and science I was like quite excelling in. So when I went into my junior year counseling appointment with a person who really didn't know me. I saw him once a year. I can't even remember his name, but I do remember his big handlebar mustache. Right? And I can remember his monochrome computer screen, just a black screen with little green writing back in the day. um, he had pulled up my test scores and my ACT, and he's like, so you're thinking of engineering, and are you going to apply to MIT and Rensselaer? And he's listing off these schools, and I'm like, but I don't want to be an engineer. And I saw him just kind of look at me quizzically, and then I said, I want to go into sports and music. I want to conduct orchestras. I am a professional musician at that point. Like I want to be a professional musician and I want to coach athletes. Like that's what I want to do. And I saw his whole face drop. Like the handlebar mustache just drooped even more. And I was like, oh, I'm letting him down. And then here's what went through my mind. Here I am, 16, I'm not even 17 yet, 16 years old as a junior. What's going through my mind is, oh, I'm letting him down. Oh, I'm letting my whole school down. Am I letting my parents down? Now, my parents basically said I could be whatever I wanted growing up. I could do whatever I want. You can be president of the United States. I actually wanted to be an ambassador to a French-speaking country at one point. I wanted to be a pilot. Like anything that I wanted, my parents like I got to fly a plane when I was 13 because I said I wanted to be a pilot. My parents made that happen with a friend, so it's very cool to grow up in that you can be anything kind of thing. But now this person says I should be this. So who's shoulding on you? Are you shoulding on yourself? I should be this. I should do this. I should go to this school. I've had some clients who are very, very disappointed that their child didn't get into their alma mater, thinking that oh, they have straight A's, but takes a lot more of that these days to get into certain schools, like a Michigan, like an Ivy League. It's far beyond the grades. It's far beyond being valedictorian. It's so far beyond that. And so that can be really, really disappointing. And then they start questioning their own expectations about things. And then that affects like the whole family. I've seen those dynamics happen. So first step to untangle is what is that expectation? Where is it coming from? Who's driving it? In the case of my story, it was a counselor driving it, maybe a couple of my teachers thinking, oh, she's going to do this, right? But they had never talked to me. They didn't know about my violin playing. They didn't know what really got me charged up. So that was kind of interesting. Um, so untangling that. Untangling the expectation. Now let's look at the current situation, the choices that you're making, um, what's important to you. I was reminded yesterday, I was on a call with my Outlier Project group, and there was an author, he's known as Dr. Rewire, and he was talking about four different types of brain. I'm interested in his book, but it also reminded me of the four styles in style flexing that I learned in a leadership program. And I want to share those because I think those styles determine both what our expectations might be and also what we're doing, what our current choices are. So the styles are these: controller, promoter, analyzer, supporter. So if you're a controller, you like to be the boss. You're usually high achieving. You're going to get everything across the finish line. You're driven, very driven. You have very high expectations. The downside is that you might micromanage because you want it done your way. You may push people where they're getting too uncomfortable to actually do the work they need to do. So that has to be tempered. So there's a positive and a negative to each one of these styles. So that's a controller, just briefly describing them here. For the For the promoter, your promoter typically is your marketing type person, like rah rah cheerleader. I have promoter energy. Like I was a cheerleader. So promoter energy, so excited about a project, so into it at first, but usually can then fall off and not complete. They need a little support when it gets to actually finishing the action. So that's your promoter energy. Your analyzer tends to be your accountants, your people who are very detailed oriented, editors, people who find mistakes, auditors. And so for them, dotting every I, crossing every T, knowing every detail. So in a team situation, they'll be the ones that are holding back to get everything right, to get all the information before decisions are made. The first two will make decisions far quicker than an analyzer. Last is supporter. So supporter is the person who's going to make sure that the coffee and the food is all prepared and ready for the meeting. They're going to make sure that people feel loved and cared for and nurtured. They're very, very supportive in their energy. Then the downside is they can often feel that they're not affirmed, that their efforts are not rewarded or even seen. And so sometimes they're the people at the water cooler who are complaining or in the lounge complaining about things because they don't feel valued. So if you have supporters on your team and you need supporters on your team, making sure that you see them, making sure that they're affirmed is so important. So when you look at these four styles, I took a test. So I'm a super high controller, which was no surprise. Then my promoter and analyzer were exactly the same number in the kind of in the middle of this scale, which makes a lot of sense. I've done a lot of finance work. I have an MBA from Michigan. I actually passed out of accounting and I had never taken the course. I studied on my own in a couple of weeks and I actually passed. So I'm really good with numbers, which is why my counselor thought, oh, you're going to be an engineer. Like that's a good fit for me. It's because of that element that I have. But that's like in the middle. And then last are my supporter. Very low is my supporter energy, which is funny because some people will say to me, "Elle, you're such a supportive coach and you have unconditional support for me." Like, that's amazing. So with all of these styles, we're all of them. And we bring them out in different times and we experience them in different times. So we're not just one thing, but we tend to have, a little more of this in one situation, a little more of this in another. So you can actually flex this when you're working with people. So now let's apply that to the current choices and expectations. I'm going to pick analyzer. So if you're an analyzer and you have a lot of analyzer energy, you making sure all details are set before you make decisions. You take a long time to process decisions because you need to get it right. So the expectation might be that you're making decisions faster, but that's not your dominant style. You need time to process. You need to make sure everything is in order. And so knowing that, you can say, okay, so what is my expectation then? What do I really want to see here or have happen here? And you can flex that, you can change that. And then you can look at how am I operating? And do I need to up level some of my promoter energy maybe and get a little rah-rah about this thing instead of just, blinders on and I'm just crunching numbers all day. But like, what is the bigger vision? Open yourself up to vision. So that's just an example of expectations over here. And you can do that for any one of the styles. It's like, oh, that's why this is not, I'm not hitting this target. I'm not hitting this goal. I really need to shift that because it's not really in my wheelhouse to achieve that. It's maybe over here. It's not like a down thing, but it could be a sideways move in how you develop what that target really is for you. I hope this is making sense. I really love this subject, and I could go on for another 2 hours, but our time is up for today, which is something I don't ever want to say to a client. But just keep it in mind if it's interesting to you and you want to have more conversation about it, let me know. I think I might do another live that goes deeper on this, but I think expectations, so many of my clients are overwhelmed. And it's because those expectations and the conditions that this isn't matching.